Hi there, this is Unmesh, and today we're going to learn a very easy way to create a beautiful backlight effect in Photoshop. So without any further ado, let's get started. So here we are in Photoshop, and if you want to download this photo, check the links in the description. So the first thing that we have to do is to make a copy of the background layer. To do that, press Ctrl or Command J. Now you can name this layer Subject. Double click on the text and name this Subject. What we're going to do in this layer is that we're going to make a selection of the subject and keep it at that so that any effect that we apply, especially in this case the light, limits to the subject. And subject doesn't necessarily mean the human being. It can be anything which comes in the way of light. Alright, so we will choose any selection tool that we like and click on Select and Mask. You can use Refine Edge as well if you're using an older version of Photoshop, anything older than Photoshop CC 2015.5. Then you will not have Select and Mask, you will have to use the Refine Edge. We have to make a selection of the subject. You can change the view to anything that you like, anything, whichever is your favorite. I'm going to choose on black. Now what on black does, it shows everything which is not selected as black. As simple as that. You can always control the opacity and we'll get to that later. Let's decrease the opacity a bit. Okay. And then with the help of quick selection tool, the shortcut to which is W, just simply paint on the subject. Let's make the brush a little bigger by using the square bracket keys. Also, you can hold the Alt or Option, the right mouse button, drag it to the right to make it bigger, drag it to the left to make it smaller. If you're using a Mac, that would be Option and Control and then drag with the right mouse button. Just simply paint on the subject. You can also use Select Subject button to select the subject at once, but I'm going to paint. Okay. Alright. So how does this on black help? Well, it helps you to figure out which areas are yet to be selected. If you zoom in, if you take the slider all the way to the right, any area, as we discussed, which is not selected, it turns it completely black. If you take the slider all the way to the left, it shows you everything irrespective of whatever you have selected. So let's keep it somewhere around this number and then zoom in. And as you can have a look, this hair is remaining. So we will just make the brush a little smaller and simply paint on the remaining area. Sometimes it also selects something extra, as you can see over here, and we can take care of that later. It doesn't really matter. Just make sure that the selection is perfect in the areas where the light is coming through. So as you can see, this area is in shadow. You don't have to be so perfect with the selection. Also, this area where the hair is at the bottom, you don't have to be perfect over there. All right. So only be careful of the areas where the light is falling. As you can see, the selection is very bad over here. And even if we try to improve it, it's not going to improve greatly. So we will improve that later with the help of Pen tool. Right now, make sure the selection is pretty okay. It's okay. You can also use the Refine Edge tool to refine the selection. So click on this one, the shortcut to which is R, alright? And just paint on the edges, just like this. It just refines the edge. As you can see, if we increase the opacity, have a look how refined the edge is over there. It's a pretty good selection. These are the areas where the refine edge is required, especially hair and stuff. Don't worry about the selection so much because anyway we are not changing the background. The background is going to remain the same. We will just add some highlights, okay? So similarly in this area is going to be in shadow, so don't worry about the accuracy of the selection. But always keep in mind, the better the selection, the better the effect will look. So it does matter, but not in shadow areas. But just let's make a selection just for our happiness sake. Alright, so we have selected a little extra. With the help of the brush tool, let's erase that. Hold the Alt or Option to turn that to minus, and we'll just simply erase the outside a bit. And that's okay. Let's zoom out and have a look at this. It's a pretty good selection, not excellent. We will improve this area. Do not worry about that. Now once you're done with that, make sure you choose Output to Layer Mask. Hit OK. And there you have the selection. Now you cannot see anything. Why? Because in the background, we already have the complete background. So let's go ahead and create a solid color adjustment layer. Click on the adjustment layer icon and choose solid color and choose black. All right. And put it behind the subject so that we can see it properly. All right. Let's zoom in. And as you can see, the extra area has been selected. we will choose the mask, select the mask, take the brush, make sure the foreground color is black. You can always press X to toggle between the foreground and the background, and just paint black in this area. Now, what is the concept of mask? Black hides, white shows up. So black are the areas which do not show up. So if I paint in black over here, this area will hide. If I paint in white over here, change the color by pressing X, this area shows up again. The flow is low. Let's increase the flow to 100. All right. Okay. So we're going to erase this area out over here, just like that. It's pretty okay. Now let's improve that using the pen tool. Let's open up the properties of the mask. So you can click on here. If you cannot see the properties, you can go to Windows and make sure properties is checked. All right. Let's decrease the density. What that does is that it just fades the mask. That's all there is. It just fades the mask. Have a look. It makes it gray. So if it makes it gray, it's not black, it shows up a little bit, right? All right. Hold the Alt or Option, click on the mask again to show up the image. Now, with the help of pen tool, let's refine the selection. So press P to open up the pen tool, or you can just right click here and choose the pen tool, the regular pen tool, not the curvature pen tool, the regular pen tool. All right. So let's zoom in and we're going to make an accurate selection. Just click once, click and drag. And by the way, guys, I have a complete guide on using the pen tool. And if you watch this tutorial, I guarantee you, if you practice with it, you will master the pen tool in no time. So this is highly recommended if you want to learn about the pen tool. All right. So click and drag. And the advantage here is you can edit those handles and those points later by holding the Control or Command and clicking on it. Click and drag to adjust it. You can play with the handles, right? This looks pretty okay. All right, that looks great. Zoom in. Be as accurate as possible. See, it's creating another path. When that happens, what you have to do, let's go back by pressing Control Alt Z, Command Option Z. Click on this. See this icon with the pen tool with a link icon on it? Just click on this. It helps you continue with that. Now, as you can see here you have a sharp turn. If you try to do something, it will be soft turn over here. We don't want that. We want to have a sharp turn. So here's what we do. We hold the Alt or Option and click on this. This breaks the handle which is in the direction of the path. Holding the Alt or Option, click on this one. And then, as you can see, a sharp turn over there. Play with this. Similarly, we want a sharp turn again. Hold the Alt or Option, click on this, sharp turn, just like that. Easy? Right. Okay. Now let's edit the point. Make it a little smaller from the top. And okay. That is great. Again, a sharp turn. Hold the Alt or Option, click on this, right? Just like this. And now let's finish the selection. Anytime you can decrease the density to see more of it. All right, I'm going to decrease it a bit. Now let's finish the selection. It's not actually a selection, it's a path, right? So let's close the path and we will turn that into a selection. But before we do that, let's edit the points. Make sure the selection is pretty perfect. It has to be like really, really perfect. On the lines, perfect. To add a point, simply click on it. And then by holding the Control or Command, you can adjust the point just like that. Okay, this looks perfect. Now once you're ready, once the selection looks perfect, right click on it and choose Make Selection. Now we're going to choose the feather 0 because anyway we will add the softness later. Hit OK. And then all you have to do, just increase the density of it. Make sure you bring up the properties, click on the mask, bring up the density and then take the brush. Make sure the foreground color is white and then paint on these areas. Now the selection is so much better. Now as you can see, some extra areas are selected. To remove that, you need to invert the selection. How do we invert the selection? Press Ctrl Shift I, Command Shift I, or you can go to Select and then Inverse. It does the same thing. Now paint the outside areas with black. Black hides, remember. So done. so clean the selection is right now. Press Ctrl or Command D to let go of the marching ants. Now, as you can see, it's very harsh. We need to soften the mask, the selection. So make sure the mask is selected, not the actual image. With the mask selected, with the help of the blur tool, alright, you can decrease the strength to 20%, 30%, whatever you like, and just simply start painting around the edge, like that. See, now it is soft. It looks more natural, right? You can paint more in some areas, less in some other areas. That's totally upon you, the kind of result that you're looking for. Paint a little bit over here. Now it's looking natural. Now the selection is pretty good. You can delete the color fill layer. This was just for indication. Let's delete it. We don't need it anymore. Or you can just simply click on it. Whoops, I did something wrong. Just simply click on it and press the delete key. As easy as that. Zoom out a little bit. Now we need to add that light around the corners. And how can we do that? By creating a levels adjustment layer at the top. So click on the adjustment layer icon and choose levels. Right. Now the slider on the right makes bright things brighter. The slider on the left makes the darks darker, and the slider in the middle controls the midtones. If you take it to the left, it makes the midtones brighter, midtones darker. Let's reset that. All right. So we need to make the bright areas brighter. To do that, the slider on the right, take it to the left. This makes the brights brighter. It adds light. However, it's also adding light to the complete image. We don't want that. We want to limit it just to the subject. And how can we do that? By creating a clipping mask. To do that, hold the Alt or Option. Click on the line between these two layers. This creates a clipping mask. One more method is, let's go back. Just simply click on this button. It also creates a clipping mask. Now, as you can see, the light is all over the subject. We don't want that. We want it only around the corners and only around those areas which are in the direction of light. All right. So make sure the mask is selected. Okay. And then press Ctrl or Command I. And as you already have guessed, take the brush, make sure the foreground color is white, and then paint on the areas. Decrease the flow. I would have it somewhere around 20%. And just paint on the areas which are in the direction of light where you think the light might bend if it came from the back. Around the nose, be careful. As you can see, it's limited to the subject. Why? Because we created the clipping mask. Looks nice, doesn't it? Do not paint on this area because this area is in shadow, under lip. Neither in this area. A little bit in this area, not so much, just a little bit. Dab, right? Let's brighten up these areas. A little bit. A little bit at the back. Not this area because there's shadow on this area. A little bit like that. We can add one more level of levels. So click on the adjustment layer icon and choose levels again. We will also clip the same and then make it more brighter, even more. Like that, I like it. And then with the mask selected, press Ctrl or Command I to invert it. Then zoom in and this time decrease the flow even more. I will go to 5% and then just paint on the extra bright areas. Just some areas, not all the areas, to add that dimension. Right? Just this area, just this area. On the top of her lips to add that highlight. Just some areas, not all of them. Right? Her hair at the top. Let's have a look at it. It looks wonderful. Look at the second level. So here's the before, here's the after. This is just for some extra dimension that we were looking for. Have a look at the overall before and after. So this is the after. Let's zoom out a bit. This is the after. This is the before. Look at the light. It does look amazing. However, if you have a look at the light, let's add some more to the left and let's go back to this levels. Let's add some more, just a tad bit here and there. It looks wonderful. All right. Now, have a look at this. It looks baseless. Why does it look baseless? Now we have the light turning around the corners. We have those highlights, but we don't have a backlight to support it, right? So we need to create a backlight. In this case, since this is a natural background, we will try to mimic the sun. And how can we do that? By using a gradient, a radial gradient. And we will create that behind the subject. So let's select the background layer so we can create a layer which is just above the background and behind the subject. So click on the adjustment layer icon and choose gradient. Okay, in the gradient, just single click on this. So choose any gradient which is a color to transparent, and then this white is okay. On the right hand side, as it fades, I want it to be, say, yellow or red, whatever color you like. You can change that later, it doesn't really matter. So let's keep it yellow, orangish, hit OK, and then change the style from linear to radial, and you can move it to the position that you like. I'm gonna keep it right over here. It looks wonderful. You can change the position later, doesn't really matter, and you can change the scale. So let's keep it at that 199, that's fine. Hit OK and change the blend mode. Do not forget to do this. Change the blend mode to screen, which makes sure that it only brightens, it doesn't darken anything. So change it to screen. It makes it even better. Now you can change the color to whatever you like. Just double click on it, because after changing it to screen, the whole image looks different. Now let's change the scale to our liking. 177 is good, and then we can change the color. Double click on this, you can change the color to whatever you like. Let's keep it a little bit reddish, orangish. That's fine, hit OK. And if you want, you can have the highlights to be yellow as well. So you can choose any yellow highlight if that suits you, or something like that. But I'm gonna leave it at that. This color looks amazing. All right, hit OK. Now you can also create levels of gradient if you want. Hit OK again, hit OK. And then decrease the opacity of it if you think it's too much. Just a little bit. Maybe 77 is okay. Let's create one more gradient fill. Let's make a copy of this one. Don't create one more. Double click on this one, and for this one, you can decrease the scale. Maybe a smaller bright area, just like this. 89, and for this one you can increase the opacity. That's totally upon what you want. Now let's have an overall look at the before and after. So this is the after, this is the before. After, before. See how nicely we have added that effect, and overall you can decrease the opacity of both of them. Let's make a group of both of them by selecting the first one and then holding the Control or Command, selecting the second one, then press Control or Command G, and you can decrease the opacity of both of them at once. At this point, I think let's keep it at 95. I think it should be more yellowish over there. So you can just double click on this one, select the color, change it to yellow. Okay. All right. Okay. Now, if you want, you can create as many levels of this as you want. Now, at this point, again, now this is kind of thing which we go back and forth into it. And at this point, I think let's increase it all the way to 100 so that we can have much more of yellow into that. So we will create one more level of gradient. This is just for experiment. I'm doing it for the first time. Let's see how that goes. All right. So let's leave it at that. White to this is fine. Let's keep it yellowish. Again. Okay, okay, all right, and change that to radial again, and we will move it to this area and hit OK and change that to screen. Okay, now we will increase the scale just to this. The yellow looks good, but it's getting too bright. Do not worry about that right now. Okay, this is great, and we can change the yellow color now to a little more orangish. Okay. All right. Hit OK. Now we don't want the bright areas. So here's what we do. With the mask selected, take the brush, okay, and just paint on the bright areas with black. Make sure the flow is 100% and just paint those areas. We want the details over there. But we love the yellow over here. So we will keep that and just paint on these areas with black. It looks wonderful. Does look nice. So let's have a look at the before and after. So this is the before. This is the after with the backlight, right? Now, let's add an overall effect at the end. It's very necessary that we do that. You can use a lot of things, but first of all, let's use gradient maps, right? Gradient maps really brings out the colors and the highlights and the shadows. And let's click on the adjustment layer icon and choose gradient map. Now, what does gradient map do? It simply maps the color. The right hand side signifies the highlights, and the left hand side are the shadows. So as you can see, the gradient which has been applied, it looks negative. Why? Because on the right hand side, which are the highlights, we have black color, and for the shadow areas we have white color. This is not what we want. So single click on this and we're going to choose something like this, and we can change the color to whatever we like. So the highlights, we can keep it yellow orangish. Let's keep it yellow. Like that. Hit OK. And the shadows, we want red color. And keep it some dark color. That looks great. Okay. And hit OK. Brights, I'm going to make it a little more orangish. All right. This looks perfect. Hit OK. And then what you can do, there are a couple of things that you can do. You can simply decrease the opacity and increase it just a little bit, just like that. It adds a feel to the image. Or what you can do, you can also change the blend mode to overlay or soft light. So I'm going to try overlay and try increasing it. See, it also adds an effect depending upon what you want. So I'm going to leave it at normal and decrease the opacity. Add a feel to the image like 14 or 16%. But I don't want it to be on the highlights. On the highlights, I want it to be completely bright. So how can we leave the highlights or delete the highlights? Simple, let's apply blend diff to that. Double click on the right hand side of the layer. Take the slider of the underlying layer from right to left. What that does is that it deletes the areas which are bright in the underlying layer, which means in the layers which are beneath the current layer, from the current layer. So if you take the slider to the left, it will take away the bright areas of the layers which are beneath it from the current layer, which is the gradient map, right? But this is very harsh. We don't want it to be that harsh. So hold the Alt or Option, click on the slider, it breaks the slider, and then make it smooth like that. Hit OK. Doesn't that look wonderful? So before this, after this, adds a mood to the image. Also what you can do, you can apply color lookup tables. So click on the adjustment layer icon and choose color lookup. So you can choose anything that you like, just select anyone, and using the scroll of your mouse, if you're using a mouse, you can just scroll in and have a look at different ones. This looks wonderful, but this is too much, so we will decrease the opacity. Just have a little bit of it and we are pretty much done. You can also apply a curves adjustment layer. You know, this goes on and on. That totally depends upon what you want, and make it a little darker. All right, if you want to fade it a little bit, you can also do that, but I'm going to leave it at that, just a little bit of fade. Okay, wonderful. And I did play with it a little bit, and here is the final result. And if you're interested in adding that lens flare in this one as I did, you can easily do that by going to Filter, Render, and then Lens Flare. So that's pretty much it. That's how you can easily apply a backlight effect in Photoshop. The idea here is very simple. Make a copy of the background layer. Make a perfect selection of the subject, create a mask, make sure just the subject is there, everything else is hidden with the help of layer mask. Then using levels, apply highlights to the corners. And how can we do that? Inside the levels, you can use masks to limit it just to the corners, right? You can add levels of levels, right? And once you have the light around the corners, you also want something to back it up. So add a light at the back, add any kind of light that you like. For this example, I used a simple gradient. And at the end, apply any effect that you like to really bring everything together. And that's pretty much it for this tutorial. Hope you enjoyed this, and if you did, make sure to give us a like, and also don't forget to subscribe, and not just subscribe. Ring the bell so that you, my friend, don't miss a thing. I would like to take this moment to thank all these nice people for making this channel available for free and supporting us on Patreon. Thank you so much for all the support. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys in my next one. Till then, stay tuned and make sure that you keep creating.